In this video, we're going to look at the different types of exceptions that can be thrown and caught and handled in Java. So this chart is a diagram of the structure of all the different classes involved with exceptions. So everything in Java inherits from the object class ultimately. Throwable class inherits from object, and throwable is the root for all the different kinds of exceptions that can happen. Exceptions and errors. If you look, we branch out to two different kinds. We have error class and we have an exception class. Let's talk about those. The error class that's for system errors. Those are the errors that are actually thrown by the Java virtual machine. They could be like a linkage error or a problem with the virtual machine. They're very rare. They don't happen very often. And if it does, there's really nothing that you can do about it because you're not the person that wrote the virtual machine. You're not writing that code. So there's really the only thing we could try to do is write a little bit of code to make let the program terminate gracefully. So those errors are beyond the scope of probably what you normally need to worry about. The exception class is where most of our magic happens. Exception class describes errors caused by your program and external circumstances. Those two distinctions will come up here in a second. The errors, all of these errors can be caught and handled by our program. So the exception class is the root for all exceptions. If we want to, we can make our own exceptions, and all we have to do is inherit from the exception class, or extend the exception class is another way to say that. And we can create our own custom exceptions, and we'll look at that later. But within the exception class, there's another category, which are runtime exceptions. Runtimes are special exceptions. They're things like arithmetic exceptions, null pointer exceptions, indexes out of bounds. If you're working with an array and you use a number that's bigger than the size of your array, you get an index out of bounds exception. Or sending illegal arguments to the wrong method could give you an illegal argument. There's a lot of different types of those exceptions. The thing to know about runtime exceptions, though, is if you're getting one of these exceptions, that's caused by you. Runtime exception is caused by programming errors, such as bad casting. You're trying to cast numbers that shouldn't be. Maybe you're trying to cast a word into a number. Maybe you're trying to, cast a number that's of too big a data type into a smaller data type. Accessing out of bounds an array and numeric errors. Since they're caused by us in our program, they're kind of logic errors, we can fix those. Those shouldn't happen if your program is written well. There's no reason to have try catches for these. What you really need to do is fix your code if that happens. So runtime exceptions and error. So this is all the errors ones, the one I said we can't do much about. And these runtime exceptions and all of their subclasses are called unchecked exceptions, meaning Java does not force you to do any checks on those things. All other exceptions are known as checked exceptions, meaning that the compiler forces us to check and deal with those exceptions. So anything in this chart, all these different classes under exception, except for the runtime exceptions, we are required to deal with if they're going to appear in our code. In most cases, unchecked exceptions reflect programming logic errors. I've said that already. For example, null pointer. If you try to access an object before you create the object, you're going to get that. They're logic errors. We should correct those in our program. So could we write try-catch blocks for them? We could, but we would just have giant programs full of try-catch blocks And the right way to fix them is to make sure that we're writing good code. Okay? So Java does not mandate that we write code to catch anything that is considered an unchecked exception, which is all the runtimes and all the errors. Everything else we are required to do in try-catch block. All right, in the next video, we're going to look at the process of declaring, throwing, and catching exceptions in detail.